call the City of Beaumont Committee of the Whole meeting to order of Tuesday, December 17th. Just as we get going, I'd just like to say we are pleased to be here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be of First Nations, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We are all treaty people. A couple of things to note. Councillor Van Newkirk is joining us by phone today. Therefore, I'll be chairing the meeting. And could please everybody speak into the mics, or Councillor Van Newkirk may or may not be able to hear us as we go forward.
Yeah, thank you for that.
All right, as we have a long agenda tonight, I'm hoping there's no modifications to the agenda.
Sounds like a rhetorical question.
I'm just saying. All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented, please? Councillor Danlock.
So, Your Worship, thank you.
Discussion on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
That carries. Councillor Van Newkirk?
Yes.
I got to remember to check with you before I just go that carries. We're just to item 3A, Community Standards Bylaw Communication Plan Review. Chief Cook.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. Administration is before the committee tonight to present the draft Community Standards Communication Plan, and that is for the forthcoming Community Standards Bylaw, which administration hopes to be rolling out here in the near future. This committee may recall that administration visited the committee on May 21, 2019, and engaged the committee with respect to the possible content of the proposed bylaw. Following the direction of council, administration has prepared a communication plan which is attached to the RFD this evening that may be used as a guide to which residents, businesses, and other key stakeholders will be informed and engaged as the City of Beaumont works through the process of designing and implementing a community standards bylaw. I do want to note that the timeline of this bylaw right now is in draft as well. However, it is anticipated that community engagement may begin as early as Q1, perhaps January of 2020, with the first reading of the bylaw, community standards bylaw, coming forward by Q3 of 2020. Again, that is subject to change based on input from not only residents, but of course from council and the committee as well. The draft communications plan before you identifies not only target audiences, which includes residences, businesses, and charitable organizations, but also internal audiences as well, which includes council, city employees, and the RCMP. The approach that the City of Beaumont is planning to use consolidates, with the creation of this bylaw, consolidates and updates the rules that are currently exist in different bylaws, bringing them into one location. As our population grows, this will provide our residents and future residents a consistent, transparent set of rules and a location to go and actually access those rules. Public messaging is key for the delivery of this bylaw and the creation of this bylaw, as many target audiences have been identified, and of course the avenues for which to engage those audiences are vast, and the administration plans to use many of them for which we can get an accurate feel and direction from our community on which way they would like to go. Further to that as well, the use of social media sites as well as the city's website as well would be used as identified in the plan as a source of truth or a place to go to for our residents who are seeking clarification on the bylaw. Our communications department is with us tonight, manager, simply as they will play an exceptionally key role in the rollout and delivery of the community engagement pieces of this project. And working with them, we're certain to have a successful outcome in the end. At the end of the day, our key messaging is clear. The City of Beaumont is modernizing and streamlining our Good Neighbor bylaw so that residents can continue to enjoy a high quality of life in Beaumont. And further, this bylaw provides a clear and transparent set of rules for residents and businesses and will make enforcement more effective and efficient. Having said that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you very much. We really do appreciate the amount of work that's both going into the bylaw and into the communications plan that we're looking at this evening. Are there questions from members of council this evening on the comms plan as presented? Councillor Stout, followed by Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, there's a There's quite a there's a strong reference to social media in this, which I commend. I think that's important. And there's also a number of references to print-based media. Can I just ask how that's going to be distributed? Is that newspapers, or are we contemplating a mail drop for some of this information?
Through the chair to Councillor Stout. So that would be multiple channels there. It would include some print advertising, but we would also produce, what we're suggesting is producing some specifically targeted print materials, so some information sheets that would be topic specific based on the audience. So for example, if we were doing some information for RV owners, we would produce a limited run of that and to distribute those at, say, for example, there's an organization or a dealership that does an RV clinic in the spring or the fall, that we would target those kinds of activities or look for opportunities to partner with some of the local organizations and businesses. Another example might be for the animal control. If there's any impact on animal control regulation, that we would do an information sheet that details what the changes are and the impacts for owners, and we would make those available at, say, for example, veterinarian offices, rather than doing just a blanket drop of all the material.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, I was just trying to visualize how this actually gets into we print all this stuff, but it's only useful if it gets into the hands of the people that it concerns, or residents that it concerns. So, yes, so we'd have something at a veterinarian's office, let's say, regarding animal control, and we'd
Absolutely.
talk to all the veterinarians. I mean, it's up to them as to whether they want to carry it, but we'd talk to all of them and try and...
Exactly, and pet supply stores would be another good example.
Yes. Okay, and similarly for RVs. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Danley?
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, good job, guys. Quick question I do have, though. I know a pain point for many people in our community is the question of RVs, and some people's perception of the streets and RV storage lot, where some people think RV should be stored in a storage lot, hence you talk to, of course. So I know we're trying very hard in this bylaw to give a plain language approach, and that's going to be difficult to do. I think it's going to be a great target. How we get there is up to you guys, of course, but my thoughts are any suggestion how you might, for example, include examples for owners of RVs, how they can and can't park their RV on the street, and you mentioned a plain language approach. What are you sort of thinking in terms of how we're going to do that?
Certainly through the chair to Councillor Danwick. We would include some graphics, some visualizations of what that would look like too, with, for example, this many meters from the curb, this many meters from the sidewalk, and some just some images of what that would look like.
That's great. Thank you. It'll be well received. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Van Newkirk?
Yeah, you bet. Just a couple of comments. First one would just be on the engagement portion there. I like all the stuff that's put forward. One thing we might consider is using pop-up booths at community events or gatherings. Just a piece of advice, I suppose. And then on target audiences, I think that's a really good list, the residents and businesses, charitable organizations. The one I thought might have been included in some way here, but not as specific, might be recreational field and parks users, as in users of playgrounds or users of fields or users of the skate park. I think we can go and target those groups a little bit differently and one-on-one about best practices in using the parks, keeping them clean, when working with the city when there are rain delays or water issues, which we've seen in the past. So I think we might add them as an external group. Just a suggestion.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Any follow-up? Councillor Newkirk? Any other members of council? Questions? Can I get a motion to accept this report as information? Councillor Stout? Discussion on the motion? All in favor? Carry unanimously. Councillor Van
Yes.
Newkirk?
Yes. Yep.
I will remember to get you sooner or later.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry. All right, that brings us to item 3B, Recreation Facility Allocation Policy. Mr. Suter. And a new face that I don't know.
Sean Gillen, supervising BSRC, Beaumont Sport Recreation.
Welcome. Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee. I brought Sean in tonight. He's gone through this draft policy, and he's the expert in this. To
table, so I'm going to turn it over to him and we can go through it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. It is a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm here to present the recreational facility allocation.
Could you
policy.
talk into the microphone?
Sorry.
They're very specific in direction, so thank you.
That's right. I'm here to present the recreational facility allocation policy for request for direction from the committee. So the purpose of this policy will ensure that the City of Beaumont provides equitable access to facilities for user groups and community volunteer organizations to continue their development of social, physical, cultural, health, and wellness. The policy will outline the facility included, priorities, process, and general guidelines. After reviewing our existing allocation practices across Ken Nickel, Aquafit Center, and sport fields, it became quite clear that we needed to have a streamlined single policy that covered all facilities, including the community center. So when researching this policy, we looked at comparable communities, both locally, provincially, and even outside the province, for other policies like this to create or define what best practice was and what standard practice was. And so the recommendations, the policy as attached are what we recommend. The policy outlines priority for allocating space that ensures that Beaumont residents and community volunteer organizations are given priority over non-local individuals and events. As Beaumont continues to grow, the community will need to grow as well. This policy will allow us to grow alongside it, as it is not fixed on really anything apart from seasons and facilities included within the policy. Administration will be able to continue to facilitate and support residents in leading active and healthy lives, but also support local CVOs to continue providing programming and services that benefit all of Beaumont in a consistent, transparent, and equitable manner. This policy will also allow us to facilitate greater communication and enhance relationships between user groups and the city. Would council like me to go through the policy?
Do you have any highlights you want to hit? I'm assuming council read the policy.
I won't go through the full policy. The policy just outlines the definitions, user groups, CVOs, and important definitions for the policy. We also outline the facilities included within this policy. The upcoming Beaumont Sport Recreation Center, Ken Nickel, the Community Center, and the sport fields, as well as it goes through the proposed priorities of allocation. We also go through the process of how we will be doing it, as well as the sports seasons, and then rough timelines for administration to complete the allocation for the applicable seasons. And then under general guidelines, it just has a number of bullet points that are just important to make note within the policy, from SOCAN and resound, cancellation policies, and playoff ice, as well as a number of other fun bits.
Is there questions from members of council? Councilor Barnhart.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
So I'm trying to get my head around how the priorities would actually work, because equitable, as we all know, is not equal. So there's certain groups will have preference over others if there's a conflict. And 9 times out of 10, there's going to be conflict on the prime time, right?
Yep, that's fair.
So just can you walk us through that a little bit? I'm trying to actually figure that out here from the priorities
Okay.
section, if that's the only the section of this that I should be looking at. But can you speak to that a little bit more, just to help me get my head around it?
Yeah, so the priorities listed just go through what seems to be best practice across different communities. And when we are looking at, not say creating, but when we're looking at starting the allocation process, we'll be using historical data. So how much ice time did user group A actually use? We'll take that data and include it in when starting the allocation process for the following season. If user group A gets 100 hours but only used 95, the following year's allocation will be based at 95 hours. It's based on time used. Now, there will be conflicts at times that there will be multiple user groups looking for the same sheet of ice, the same field house, the same diamond. So when we look at the conflicts, the conflicts has both user groups as equals in terms of priorities. So if they're both local minor nonprofits, then the group with the largest registered membership base gets the priority or gets the booking for that slot for that facility.
Say that again, so largest
So
number
the largest number of registered members.
participants in that
yes.
sport or whatever
Correct.
it might be.
Now that's if you're looking at.
And it can be adults and youth, they're going to be equal?
No, so if it's an adult group versus, if they're both local nonprofit, if one's a minor and one's an adult, the minor would get the priority. If they're both minor, the group with the largest membership base would get the priority or would get the booking over the second group.
So minors go first.
Yes.
Okay. And then the numbers.
Yes. And so those are the two big ones based on the research we've conducted. And then if there is further, I guess, contention with the allotment or who got that spot, then the group can write a letter to the Director of Community Service outlining their concerns, and then it'll be, I guess, discussed at that level.
Was if I may make a follow-up to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Has there been any thought to user groups, some prior discussion around how much each group might get and when or anything like that? Is that what you talked about?
Yes, so this is something that we'd be looking at having allocation meetings twice a year, as well as this is something that we would like to take to the user groups for their feedback. So this is very preliminary, and we'd like to engage with all the local groups to see what works and what won't work for the community.
Councillor Danlop, followed by Councillor Van Newkirk, followed by Councillors Hendricks and Stout.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome also. Thank you very much for your coming today. So one quick question I have is that we had a discussion a number of months ago, potentially around a new booking system for our rec facilities in Beaumont. It's probably going to be part of your role going forward, implementing that kind of a booking system. My question revolves around, at the time we had the discussion, we had no idea, for example, of all the swimming classes conducted by our staff at the Aquafit right now, of all the classes that are there, how many kids in the classes live in Beaumont, how many don't live in Beaumont. At the time, that information was not available. Have we been able to get that information at this point, to give you an idea how to help this with this policy, or am I jumping the gun a bit with that? Or
Through our registration software, we would be able to determine that. I just don't have those numbers in front of me.
Right.
But we would be able to look at when they register their postal code, their address, and be able to create a metric.
Yeah, okay, I'm just thinking because that base information is hard to apply a policy unless you know where you're starting from in the first place. So at the time of the conversation, we weren't aware of what that ratio was in swimming classes, for example. So thank you. I'll follow up question later on. Thank you.
Why don't you just finish now?
I'll get my thoughts on it first.
Fair enough. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thanks to administration for including the list of facilities on this policy. I think that was important. The one thing this policy doesn't speak to for timelines, it doesn't speak to the timeline by which the city needs to give notice to user groups if the city wishes to make any changes. I know some of those changes can happen on the fly, but in a perfect world, what should that timeline look like for groups if we're asking the groups to give us 14 days? Would the city do the same? Should we add that level of detail? Just looking for some comment there. Thank you.
So I'm not 100% clear on the question. So is it just when we start the process of engaging with local user groups?
No, if the city all of a sudden says the city needs to, for the city's reasons, to make a change and not have that user group in that space, how much time should we be giving the user group?
I guess as soon as we know we need to remove the facility from availability for the user group, we would let them know, and obviously there'd be no charge because that's a cancellation by the city, very similar to our cancellations of registered programs, that there's no charge to the user group or the individual, and we would rebook them as soon as we can. But in recreation, things happen, and we have to do it.
For sure, yeah. So I think my question is do we need language in the policy for that? That's what the answer that I would expect is, but I don't know if just for consideration, I suppose. So,
okay. Thank you.
Okay. Second question: will the city be providing a standardized request form for user groups to fill out? If so, should that form be appended to this policy?
I did create a very draft form. I can provide it after the fact. But that we would be looking at having a standard allocation form that the facility booking clerk would send out at the beginning of the process so they could fill out the necessary information, update who the main point of contact would be for that organization, as most of them are volunteer run and people change on a year-to-year basis as what their ask is for their regular season and if there's any special events. But there is a very draft form.
Okay. Last question, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Chair, I suppose. Further to Councillor Daniluk's question there, around the percentage of user groups signing up for programs, I think that we'll have to be careful to make sure that it's clear that this policy is for facilities and not programs. So in our engagement on that, I think it'll be important to point that out. Otherwise, the concerns that Councillor Daniluk raised may run rampant, as in I have to get up at 5 a.m. because there's people from Summerside that are going to book into swimming lessons and I can't get in as a resident of Beaumont. I don't think this policy is meant to change any of that. Is that a correct interpretation?
Yes, that's correct. This is primarily facility use.
Yeah, it's not for programs. So, wait, those are my comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hendricks?
To just take you back in time, there was a committee called the ICE Allocation Committee. And back in the day that the facility or the allocation group ran for many, many years. And what it did was, prior to the start of each season, hockey season, ice season, there would be a meeting with all in a room to great consensus. And the consensus would be built around a 1 month roadmap of calendars, because that typically would follow month after month right to the finish line. And we always had consensus by the time that evening was done. Yeah. And we had all the groups there. Anybody who had a want or need into the facility, even discussions about dry land, let alone ice, other programs were always discussed there. And we got consensus. The Ice Users Committee then was disbanded, and it was done through policy. And I attended a couple of pretty raucous, heated meetings when policies were trying to be applied to groups. Seniority issues started showing up, and what was meant by seniority, and how many years, and can you prove it, and all these other things started happening. And so what was just a consensus-based model that really didn't have any issues attached to it turned into an adversarial approach. So I'm just being cautious here that we don't turn it into an adversarial approach, that we don't, because people can read policy as they see it, they can read seniority as they see it, they can see in terms of ICE allocation times, in terms of usage times, there's some natural things that happen. It's the little guys, the little toddlers that with initiation programs, all the rest, they need the earlier slots. They won't be there after 9 o'clock at night, right? The midgets start showing up at 9 and better. Yeah. So there's just a natural orientation to a lot of this. And I think if you do it through a consensus basis, is going to be further ahead than if you try the policy approach.
So this proposed allocation policy kind of mirrors what we currently do with Ken Nickel in ICE allocation. And when chatting with our existing facility booking coordinator, she has it down to a T. So we would just be taking that and applying it across all other facilities. When doing research, I know other municipalities have various strategies to eliminate conflict, or where it comes down to whoever draws a high card gets the ice, or whatever facility. We're not there.
Right. Right.
But that is something that we are looking at our existing with ICE or with Ken Nickel and applying across the board.
Right. Thank you.
Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in the Beaumont Community Centre on most Sunday mornings for a spin class, and I noticed that there's a church group regularly using one of the multi-purpose rooms, at least what I think is a multi-purpose room. And then a couple of weeks ago, there was a big church group in the main hall. I think I was told there were 500 plus people in there. Anyway, my question is, Are church groups included in this? Does a church group constitute what would it be, local adult non-profit?
In that example, I would agree with that, local adult nonprofit.
Okay, so this applies to churches, because we tend to think of this in terms of sports groups or recreational societies or whatever, but it also includes churches.
Any CVO, any community volunteer organization, this would be the policy for booking any space.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just thinking that the purpose of some of those rooms is also likely to change as the sports and recreation. Yeah, I'm doing a spin class in what was not originally a designated spin room, so I assume when this BSRC comes back on, the spin classes will move back over there, and that room will become available for the original purpose, which I think it's a woodworking room or a pottery room or something originally.
We'll be shifting some of our existing fitness classes that are currently at the community center back over to the BSRC.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify.
Of course.
Exactly what. So, in the event then that a church group wants something at the same time as the Air Cadets, then we're applying this policy to resolve any potential conflicts.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Danlock, you had a follow-up?
Actually, I had a follow-up with more, but that's been answered, so I'll pass.
Okay,
Thank you.
Councillor Barnett?
Just a quick question,
Sure.
if I may, and thank you, Councillor Scott, 'cause I think you raised it for me. So if it's a for-profit organization that wants to use the facility, would this policy apply?
Yes, they're at the, a for-profit would be at the bottom. If they're non-local, and if they're local, they would be, yeah. So local,
The lowest priority.
correct. So local minor would be a local for-profit. Same with local adults would be for-profit, or they just don't have the society status or Societies Act status. And the same with non-local minor, non-local adults.
So the policy statement seems to imply it's only for user groups and community volunteer organizations. So I just wonder if the policy statement should be broader and could include.
Well, I mean, the purpose of the
Didn't exactly say what you just said.
okay, no, that's fair.
And I think we're agreeing with that purpose, that we do want our users and our residents to take priority in our youth groups. But yeah, it's the words don't just say that.
Okay,
so
thank you.
Maybe that's.
Councillor Hendricks, follow-up.
Right, and I just to that, and again, when you start applying policy, people look at it from different angles, different views. As an example, in the past, if say, a non-profit user group decided to use their time in the facility as a fundraiser, and then they bring in the fundraising group. They use Kinnickel 1, they fill the stands. We're going to have a fundraiser as a result, but the people on the ice are non-local adult as compared to the user group that gave up the ice, which was a amateur non-profit minor. Hence the pushback and the want then all of a sudden for the difference in fees and other issues. I just want to make sure that we don't get caught up in that again. We had that situation here. It was quite a discussion here in these chambers when it happened. And the men at that time was looking to make up the difference in cost as a result. So, and yet it was supposed to be a fundraiser. So,
okay,
right.
Any further comments or concerns from members of council? All right, so looking for a motion tonight. I'm gotta be honest, you guys, this sort of strikes me as one of the perfect opportunities to send this to our new Beaumont Sports and Rec Committee for their pass, because it's made up of community members and CVOs. So I'm going to move that we refer this to the Beaumont Sports and Rec and Culture Committee. Discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Steve?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Can I get a motion to move into closed session? Councillor Stout. Discussion on the motion? All in favor? Councillor Van Newkirk?
In favor.
Carries unanimously. Now in closed session, we're going to take a 5-minute